These are the 15 people describe the creepiest thing they ever saw in their lives. But before that, subscribe. We get so used to the schedule of our day-to-day lives that when something truly strange happens, it stays with us forever. Creepy true stories are always scarier than something fictional, because they present the idea that there's something out there waiting to disrupt our lives. Some of the creepiest things people have ever seen involve places that never existed, cars full of motionless people, and neighbors with an unprecedented amount of access to an apartment building. Hopefully you don't have any stories that can beat them. Reading stories of people describing the creepiest thing they ever saw in their lives is a fascinating look into the terror of everyday life. These folks work regular jobs and they live in normal towns, yet their experiences are straight out of a horror movie. The Man in the Closet. From Redditor/u/James Renner. I'm a journalist and was told this doozy by a woman I interviewed for a true crime story. When this woman was a young girl, say 8 years old, she started to come downstairs at night to tell her father that there was a man in her closet. He tells her there's no such thing as the boogeyman and sends her back to bed. This happens on and off for like a week. Finally, he gets frustrated and walks her back to the room and says, "I'll show you there's nothing in your closet," and goes to open the door. It opens an inch, and then he feels someone slam it shut. Turns out there really was a man in her closet. This guy who would come into the house every night and stare at the girl from the closet while she slept. The dad kicked the sh*t out of him, and the guy went to prison for many years. I researched her story 20 years after this happened. The guy had just gotten out of jail again, and no one could find him. An admittance of guilt. From Redditor/u/DJLiz. My parents bought their first house back in 1972. It was a fixer-upper, but they decided to move in right away and fix things as time/money permitted. Within a few days of moving in, the new neighbors came over to introduce themselves. They also let my parents know that the previous owners had moved out after a nasty divorce. They had lost their second baby from SIDS, and their relationship went downhill from there. My parents were horrified, more so because they were newly pregnant and couldn't imagine going through such a thing. They eventually pretty much forgot all about it. Life went on. They were in love with their new life and their new house. In preparation for the baby, they decided to wallpaper the nursery. Now, my dad told my mom there was no need in wallpapering the inside of the closet, but she insisted. She was kneeling down, scraping off old paint inside of the closet when her eyes fell upon something that made her blood turn to ice. Written in crayon, at about eye level for a kindergartner, in childish scrawl was, "I killed the baby." Keep an eye on your neighbors. From Redditor/u/Sweetish. A few years back, I rented an apartment from a friend of mine. He had recently bought it and had it completely renovated. He put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to rent it in the meantime. After moving in, I realized there was something wrong with the lady next door. She was about 45 but looked much older. She would sit up all night listening to Christian radio shows and talking loudly to someone. It got to the point where I couldn't sleep, so I went over to her place and asked her to keep it down. She opened her door, and I got a quick peek inside. Her walls all had crosses painted on them in different colors. And words like Jesus and angels scribbled everywhere. The windows were painted black, letting no light in at all. It was damp, yellow-stained 50-year-old carpets, dog sh*t and roaches everywhere. No dog, though. I asked her to please keep it down. She just looked at me and shut the door. Then she turned up the radio even louder. The next night, I had my girlfriend staying over. I wake up in the middle of the night and see a shadow of a person next to the bed looking at us sleeping. I think I'm hallucinating, as I usually do in the dark when I'm sleepy. But then the shadow starts talking. It's my neighbor, and she's holding something in her hand. She broke in during the night, and who knows how long she stood there. "You should lock your door at night," she says and walks out. The next morning, I hear someone making strange noises below my bedroom window. It's my neighbor talking to herself in tongues. She has a plastic bag in her hand with her rotting dog inside. It's hot as hell outside, and I can smell it from the bag. At this point, I'm scared sh*less. She's obviously very insane. I go upstairs and knock on another person's door and ask what the hell is going on. The guy is as scared as me. Apparently, she broke into his apartment one evening as well while he was watching TV with his kids. He got up from the couch to get a snack only to find her behind the couch staring at him holding a power drill. Now I know what was in her hand. At this stage, I'm basically pooping myself. I call the cops, and they know all about her. Apparently, she is a violent schizophrenic, and she hasn't taken her meds. But they can't force her or enter her apartment without her permission because she owns it. The only thing they can do is get her when she goes outside. I sit up for the next 2 days waiting for her to run out of cigarettes. When I hear her leave at 2 a.m. to go across the road to the 7-Eleven, I call the cops. They have 3 cars and a special van over in less than 2 minutes. They restrain her and throw her in the van and drive off to some institution, and in less than a minute, it's like she was never there. I never see her again. Still have nightmares about her looking at me in my sleep. Always lock your car. From Redditor/u/Crankloza. I was about 15 minutes from finishing the night shift at work when there was a massive crash on one of the windows in the office, so I get up and go to check it out. Someone has thrown quite a sizable rock through one of the windows on the front of the building. This is made especially weird because I'm working in the industrial district at 11:30 at night with none of the other businesses open. I go back to my desk, put a quick call through to security to let them know, and decide to head home. As I'm leaving the building, I'm freaking myself out about it more and end up running to my car, getting in, and taking off. I'm almost home, and I've started to calm down a bit when I realize that I didn't unlock my car when I got in. It had been unlocked the whole time. I do a quick check with my hand in the back seat for any possible murderers that might be hanging around there, but there's nothing there. Fast forward 30 minutes. I've called a friend of mine who says he is out drinking, so I decide I'm going to join him. I jump on my bicycle and start riding over. I'm doodling along the road on my bike. It's a nice night, and I'm in no big rush, just enjoying the moonlight, when I hear someone riding behind me. I straighten up and stick to one side of the road. He passes me really slowly, and when he is right beside me, he shoots me a smile I can describe as purely F***king insane. I kind of flinch and am taken aback as he rides on. That's when I realize he is riding my mom's bike. Needless to say, I sprint the F***ck home. When I get there, sure enough, her bike is missing, and one of my car doors is open. The back left one. I was driving and had no need to open that door. The hand outside the tent. From Redditor/u/Bringerofthanakos. A group of friends was staying at this remote cabin that one of my friend's cousins owned. There were no roads leading to the cabin, and it was a good 3/4 day hike from where you parked the cars. I couldn't go at the same time as everyone else due to work obligations, so I decided to head up the same day but later. It would mean I would have to camp for a night by myself though. The latter part of the trail is too dangerous to be taken at night, especially by someone who doesn't know it. I didn't care, I was kind of looking forward to it, as I've never camped alone before. So, I was in the middle of these woods when the sun went down. I got my camp set up in this small clearing, probably 40 feet across. Got my campfire going and pitched my small, one-person tent. Did all that camping stuff like cooking hot dogs on a stick over the fire and s'mores. I'd probably stay up for a good 2 or 3 hours after dark. It was mid-autumn, so the days were somewhat short. The entire time I thought I heard sh*t moving in the woods on the edge of the clearing. I didn't think anything of it at first cause the woods are full of animals, but as the night went on, I realized that whatever it was just circling the clearing over and over. Once I started paying attention, it made 4 or 5 laps around before I decided to get up and investigate. The noise stopped as soon as I stooped up, and I thought I heard some sound going away through the woods. I just shrugged it off thinking it was some fox that was curious that got scared when I stood up. I decide it's time to sleep, douse the fire, and climb into my tent. I start to doze off and stay in that half-asleep half-awake state for a while. I normally hear weird sh*t when I'm in this state, so I don't think much of it when I hear a voice. Something wakes me all the way up, though, and I realize the voice is real and right outside my tent. It's just above a whisper, and I'm not sure if it was another language or if they were just speaking English in such a way that I couldn't understand. I lay there for some time, I don't know how long, listening and waiting for something to happen. There is just enough moonlight to light up the walls of the tent, so I can see when a hand presses into the wall of my tent down near my foot. This freaks me out, and I sit up quickly. Whoever was outside of the tent tore *SS out of there. Like running full sprint through the woods. I get out of the tent, and shine my flashlight around and see nothing. I was expecting there to be a bloody handprint on the tent, but nope. Didn't sleep that night, packed up camp at first light that morning, and booked it to the cabin. The jiggling door handle. From Redditor/u/Incidenthetardis. Growing up, I lived in the middle of the woods. No neighbors for about a mile on each side, and we owned 60 acres of forest then a swamp after that. So basically I lived in the middle of nowhere. One summer when I was about 14, I was out in the middle of the woods playing with my dog. I'm an only child, and both of my parents were out of town, when I kept feeling something hit my elbow. I'd go to throw Max's ball, and the bump would make me throw it almost straight up. Assuming it was just me bumping it on trees or something, I ignored it. After the 4th or 5th time of it happening, I thought, well, this sucks. I'll just go home. Walking back, I felt uneasy, but I knew I was just freaking myself out because we were alone. About an hour later, Max and I are at home on the couch when the garage door opens, and he starts barking. I hop up to go let in my mom or dad, even though they were home really early. I peered through the peephole and saw the door was still shut, and no one was in the garage. Quieting Max down, I opened the door slowly and called out for my dad. Nothing. No response at all, so I go out to check the door, and it's still locked. Okay, sure. Weird, but oh well. Max heard it, too, so at least I know I'm not crazy. About 20 minutes later, I hear the door open again, and this time Max starts growling like crazy. I quiet him down again and just assume it's the wind or something making noise, even though, by this point, my heart is racing. I hear footsteps come up the stairs and think, oh geez, Dad really is home this time, and hop up and run to the door. It starts to jiggle, so I run faster to let him in. I peep through the hole, and even though my hand is loosely around the jiggling handle, there's no one on the other side of the door. Terrified, I go hide on the couch with all the lights on. Max is still growling. About an hour after that, I start to feel a little better even though I'm still terrified. Then I hear the door handle jiggle again. This time it was Max jiggling it. He needed to go outside, and the only way outside is through the garage. Fantastic. I literally sprint with him to the kennel, and as I'm standing in there, I decide to ask this thing questions to make myself feel better because I knew it wouldn't answer me. As I think about what to ask it, my eyes are drawn to the huge, heavy oak door on the kennel. It was always open because it was too heavy for me to move easily. I said, "Okay, ghost. If you're real, you'll shut this heavy door." Nothing. A minute goes by. Nothing. Max is still sniffing around. I turn around to yell at him to hurry up, and then from behind me, I hear click. I whip around and see the giant door had swung shut and latched. Okay. Clearly it was just the wind. It wasn't really windy, but it was the wind, for sure, had to be. I proceed. "Okay, ghost, that was the wind. If you're really real, you'll open this massive door back up." Nothing. I relax a bit, and then squat down with my head on my knees, reminiscing about how lame I just was being scared when I hear click clack. The door was now wide open. Max was done, so we booked it back into the house, locking every door in the house. For the next 4 hours, I would hear the footsteps on the stairs and the door handle jiggling every few minutes, until finally around 11 p.m. my dad walks in and yells at me for wasting electricity. I never told him or my mom about it until about 4 months later, when my dad came in from hunting after dark. He looked shaken, and I asked him what was wrong. He said he aimed at 2 deer but missed both completely because it felt as if something was hitting his elbow and making him shoot way above the deer. That's when I told him everything. A shadow man in the living room. From a Redditor. When I was 7, I woke up in the middle of the night with an earache. I decided to tell my mom and stepdad, and I walked out of my room. Someone was sitting on the chair in the living room, about 3 feet away from my bedroom door. The person looked strange, the face was just kind of distorted, but it was dark, and I couldn't see well. "Mom?" I asked. The person shook their head, and I started getting scared. "Mike?" The person shook their head again. I decided the best course of option was to go back to bed so I wouldn't have to walk past this person. I climbed in bed, and closed my eyes for a second before opening them and seeing the person standing in my doorway, smiling madly and nodding furiously. I screamed at the top of my lungs and closed my eyes. My stepdad came running out of his room in his underwear with a baseball bat. That was a scary sight in itself. There was nothing there, but clothes my mom had folded and put on the chair were strewn about the living room. For the longest time, I told myself it was my cat sitting on the clothes. The man on the other side of the door. From Redditor/u/ActiveSloth1234. This happened to me when I was about 8, and still scares me to this day. One evening, I went to let my dogs in from the back garden at around 9 p.m. It was pitch black, so I quickly opened the door, and my dogs came bounding in. As soon as they came in, I locked the door, and at this moment, a person on the other side pulled the handle down trying to get into my house. We had a glass door, so even in the dark, I could see the outline of a man standing there. I ran to my dad, and he ran into the back garden after this man and saw him running down the road. Since then, I have closed and locked doors at the speed of light. The Phantom Hand in the Bathroom. From Redditor/u/Petrusauthorialun. To really get my story, you have to have an understanding of my third-floor landing. There's a single set of stairs that lead up to it. Once on the landing, it's a T-shape, with an office to the left, my bedroom to the right, and straight ahead is a bathroom with a shower. Anyway, one night around 10 p.m., I'm taking a shower before I head to sleep. The glass panels on my shower are that concave/convex glass that blur everything, so everything was blurred and unclear. I glance at the door, and I see some kind of hand-like figure. Now, it was pitch black, so right there, it freaked me out because I come from a family of pale white Welsh people. What freaked me out more was how the hand seemed to come through the door, or at least an angle where whomever the hand belonged to would be visible. All it did was hit the lights. That's it. No noise, no attack or anything, it just turned off the F*King lights. So there I am, I just witnessed a phantom hand, and now I'm in my shower, and it's pitch F*King black. I've never been so chilled to the bone before. Something about being in the darkness of the night, with the only noise being the water hitting the floor beneath me, just reduced me to the most primal state of pure fear I've ever been in. I eventually get myself to leave the shower and hit the lights. The relief that came over me was immense. I've never been able to explain it. The stairs up to the landing are old and creak like hell, so I would have heard someone come and go down. No one was in my room or the office. Weirder still, nothing like it has happened since. EMTs have the craziest stories. From Redditor/u/Mount126. Our ambulance is dispatched to a residence for a male with leg pain. My partner and I walk in, and seated in the recliner is an older, African-American male with a cast on his left leg. He tells us he was in a motorcycle accident a few weeks ago and broke his leg, and was discharged from the hospital a couple of nights ago. He says he tripped over the coffee table and banged his bad leg again really hard and wanted to go back to the ER and have them check it out, just to make sure he didn't re-injure himself. So after, boring medical terminology here, we're off to the local hospital. Talking with him in the back, he seemed like a pretty chill guy. We're ting back and forth about motorcycles, his ER visit, his ex-wife, and he was just generally an easygoing guy. Halfway to the hospital, though, he suddenly stops talking and holds his hand out to me like he wants to shake my hand. I take his hand, and as I give him a firm handshake, he looks me straight in the eyes and says the creepiest thing I have ever heard. "Thank you for everything you are about to do for me." His eyes then begin to bulge out of his sockets, he starts foaming at the mouth, and he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. "I'm gonna take a diabetic SH*T on your donkey D*CK, you cracker lover. F*CK me. F*CK me now." Just over and over again for about a solid 45 seconds, maybe a minute. Then he stops, throws up all over himself, and collapses on the stretcher, unconscious. I literally just sat there the entire time in total shock and fear until he collapsed. Took a breath, checked my pants, told my partner to start driving faster, then began providing manual respirations to make sure he kept breathing. Crazy thing is, I'm talking to one of the ER nurses after we dropped him off, and she told me the same exact thing happened when he was in there earlier. And none of the doctors could figure out what it was. Always let someone take your picture. From a former Redditor. I was on vacation in Ithaca with my boyfriend at the time. We had literally, I'm talking 10 minutes, just gotten into town and stopped at a suspension bridge near Cornell's campus. I'm terrified of heights, so my boyfriend was coaxing me step by step over the bridge. It was gorgeous, and we stopped at the middle to take a picture. On the side we had come from, there was a parking lot with steps leading to the bottom of the gorge, but on the far side, there were hiking paths with no barrier. A woman walked past us and offered to take a picture for us. We declined, and she smiled and walked quickly to the far side of the bridge, where she smoothly jumped off into the gorge. There was not a second of hesitation. It was almost like she expected the path to keep going. A car full of creeps. From Redditor/u/Diggy. Driving to pick up a friend who was at this cabin party about 40 miles west of where I lived. It was close to 2 a.m. So I'm driving down this back road to find this random cabin somewhere, and I come across this red four-door sedan with all the doors open and 4 limp figures in the seats with their heads slumped over. That alone kind of freaked me the F***ck out. Later on, I'm driving by again after a failed attempt at picking up my friend, mind you. It's getting close to 3 in the morning and only the front seat passenger door was open and every person in that car was staring with a blank, dead stare directly at me as I drove past at 10 miles per hour. The shower that turned itself on. From Redditor/u/Designer Logic. Woke up one night around 1 a.m., heard the shower was on. I first thought it was my brother. He works night shifts, so I thought he had come home late and was in the shower. It went on for about half an hour until I got up and went to see WTF he was doing. No one was in the shower, my brother wasn't home yet, I was the only one in the house. Still to this day, I have no idea how it turned on or who did it. Almost 5 years later, I still think about it and sh*t myself. Even writing this now, I feel like turning every light on in the house. The Mysterious Wall of Corn. From Redditor/u/Redlaw711. A few years ago, I was driving back to my house from a friend's at around 2 a.m. I was getting close to my house, in a really rural area with cornfields on both sides of the road. All of a sudden, I saw stalks of corn blocking my path, going straight across the road from one field from another. Nobody is around, no cars, no houses, just my headlights shining on upright cornstalks standing across the road, as thick as the fields to either side. I knew I wasn't lost or anything. I drove home this way every day and stopped the car on the road, just staring at the cornstalks, trying to figure out what the F***ck to do. After sitting there for a minute, I decided that staring at the corn waiting for something to happen was much scarier than doing something. So I hit the gas, hoping the corn would just fall down in front of my small car. It was one of the strangest feelings driving through the corn. I imagine it is what it would feel like to run through Platform 9 March 4th for Harry Potter. 1 second, I was staring at what seemed to be a solid field of corn, and the next, my car is easily knocking the stalks over and I was through. The rows of corn across the road weren't as deep as I had thought, and in no time, I was on the other side looking in the rearview mirror at a wall of corn with a now gaping hole in it. Went home, went to bed still freaked out. The next morning, I went to leave, drove down the same road, and the only sign of the corn was a few stalks lying next to the road. I still have no idea how that happened. When you're the creepiest thing someone has ever seen. From Redditor/u/TheSilvermanCometh. About a year ago, I was climbing a tree in my front yard at around 4:30 a.m. I had walked a lady friend to her car and was killing time until I got the "I'm home" text, and the weather was nice for tree climbing, so I just did it. This particular night, my neighbors didn't lock their gate like they normally do, leaving easy access to their toolshed, lawn mower, etc. I guess the guy forgot. It happens, but it was definitely noticeable. Large gate, right next to the road, expensive old man tools. So as I observed the gate from my lofty perch and considered all of the reasons it would be open, I noticed a car coming down my street very slowly, eventually coming to a halt right in front of my neighbor's driveway. I looked into the car and saw 2 young men pointing and looking intently around his yard. Sketchy sh*t during daylight, much more so at night. After a minute or so of being too nervous to do anything at all, I realized I was leaning pretty heavy on some branches, exposing myself more than when these two had just driven up. That was when it happened. The guy in the passenger seat noticed me first. He did a panicky sort of double take when he first saw me, followed by what I generally assumed to be the words, OHSH*T, and rapidly punching the driver in the arm. Attempting to look menacing, I did the only thing I could think of, which was to hold my arms up in a claw-like pose, like a T-Rex. When the driver saw me, he did the same panicky double take before slamming the gas and hauling *SS out of Dodge. I like to think I was the creepiest/scariest thing those two ever saw.